Hi, my name is Chang Sheng, and right now I'll be presenting for midterm assignment for worker task completion system phase 2. So first of all, there's four new files which are get work.php, submit work.php, task list page.dat, and submit task page.dat. So first of all, in the get work.php, we'll be connecting to the database and then retrieve the worker ID with post request and validate that the worker ID is provided or not. So if the worker ID is not provided, it will return empty array and also stop the execution. So it will also prepare SQL query to select tasks assigned to the given worker and bind the worker ID as an integer to execute the prepared statement and get the result set from the query. And it will also initialize an empty array to store those tasks and look through each row in the result and add it into the task array. And then it will also return the task array as JSON response and clean up, close the statement and database connection. So next is submit work.php. We'll also connect to the database connection and also retrieve post data from the request and validate all the required fields are provided. And then it will also prepare SQL statement to insert a new submission and also execute the insert statement, and if the insert was successful, it will update the task to from pending to completed and execute the update statement. And it will also return either a success response if it's successful or return a fail response if it's failed. And also again, there's a cleanup to close prepared statement and database connection. So next is the task list page. So this page is used to display the list of tasks assigned to the specific user based on their user ID. And then the list is to hold the fetch task data, and then the boolean is loading equals to true is the flag to indicate the loading state. And in the load task, you will fetch task where the page is initialized, and this is the function to fetch the task for current user and validate the user ID before making the API call. So if the ID is invalid, it will say invalid user ID cannot load task. And we also try to load tasks from the back end by connecting to the PHP file and database in MySQL. And then down here, these are the design for the UI. And then this one will convert the map to work object and also determine if the task is already completed. And then it will gray out the completed task so that it will no longer be able to be is no longer interactable. And then here is to disable tab. Yeah, it's here. And then the thing is to look for the submit task page. If the submission went through and is successful, it will also refresh the task list to update the status from pending to completed. So here is the submit task page.dat. Is the page that allow user to submit work for a task. So it's for the final user is to log in user, and final work task is the task to be submitted. So the boolean is submitted is to track if the submission is in progress, and this is to function to handle the submission of a task and validate the submission input here. So if there's no submission text, it will come out with an error. Please enter submission text. And then the set state is to show the loading spinner. And then in here, the try is to send post request to submit the work. And if the submission is successful, it will return to task list and trigger refresh. Otherwise, it will show the submission fail response saying submission fail. And the set state for the catch is to catch error like for network or server error. And these are the UI design. And then this is the text field for entering submission text and also the submit button. And this is to display the task title that you can't edit based on the task title. So that's all for the code. Right now I'll run the program. And while we are waiting to run the program, uh, we'll be looking at the new two tables that have been added. So the first table is the table worker, which has work ID with auto increment, and then title, description, assigned to, the date assigned, due date, and status. And then in the table, we have already included 10 dummy data, which are assigned, which have like 2 tasks assigned to each of the worker ID ranging from worker ID 1 to 5. So in the worker table, we have also already created 6 worker ID, 6 worker account, there's also another table called table submission, which has ID, worker ID, submission text, and submitted app. So right now that the now that the app is already on, so first of all, if you come in as a guest and you click on view task, it will pop up errors say that invalid user ID and cannot load task. So now we'll start with the first account. Alright. So as you can see in the first account, it has two tasks: prepare material A and paint booth check. So here it display the task name, task description, the due date, and the status if it's pending or completed. So as you can see from here, it is assigned to worker ID 1 for this both tasks, which is the paint booth check and also the prepare material A, which are correct here. And then if you click into the submit task, it will show the task title where you can edit it, and also a text box to ask about your completion. So let's say if we didn't input anything and click submit, it will say please enter submission text. So let's say now if we click submit, it will refresh and say submission successful, and the status will be refreshed to show completed, and at the same time it will also be disabled, so it can no longer be interacted since the task is completed. So now if you look at the table submission, you'll see that there's a record of the worker ID from the first worker and the work ID, which is the work one, and the submission text and submitted time. The data is there, record, and then here the status is automatically updated from pending to completed. So now let's log into another account. So again, this one is for the worker ID number 2. So it is the inspect machine X and label inventory. So both are correct. So let's say if this one is done, and then this one is also done. So now both are done. So both are not interactable anymore. And if you check the table submission, yeah, it will show the record for both of it. For the work ID number 2 and number 7, and then we check the table again. Number 2 and number 7 are both completed. Alright, so now going to the third account. So as you can see, the third account has clean area B, which is correct, and update database. And then for the fourth account, which is the test circuit board for work ID number 4 and maintain equipment. So it's all correct. And then for account number 5, it is for document processes and prepare report. So as you can see, all 5 ID I have their each assigned job based on the dummy data. So now if I have another account for worker ID number 6, there will be no task. It will show no task because out of all the 10 dummy data here, none of them is assigned to worker ID number 6. Alright, so I think that is all for my presentation. Thank you for watching.